Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Niche Cast. I'm the Diggity Doodah, Dr. Papatoy Panther with a wide arsenal of deliveries. Maybe it's the Doosra, maybe it's the change-up, maybe it's a full banger, because we are here to discuss Blackcaps versus India. Cricket World Cup semi-final. Blackcaps defeated India, and I'm here with the wobbly wildcard to just talk some shit about this World Cup semi-final. You know the deal. Support the Niche Cast and the Niche Cache the best way you can. The best way you can do that is through Patreon. We're going to be serving up all sorts of little Patreon angles and content over the next few months as we make that a priority. So if you do support the Niche Cache and the Niche Cast, jump on Patreon and support us directly. Otherwise, just your good vibes, you're listening, using your taringas and rating and reviewing, subscribing, liking, however you want to do it. Just good vibes reciprocated will be lovely. There's nothing else to discuss except for Blackcaps World Cup Cricket wildcard, and well, it was pretty good World Cup semi-final from the Blackcaps over 2 days. Bit weird, but I would say niggly, but the point about this World Cup semi-final, as we discussed leading into in the preview of the semi-final, was how everything had resulted in the Blackcaps being in this position, being in the semi-final, but being heavy underdogs in the semi-final stage. Everyone's talking about how the Blackcaps are the worst team in the semi-finals. That's great. We love that. We're Kiwis. We love all that. And then wildcard. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you're well. Hope you've had a little sleep. Because I want to get your vibe on how everything in the semi-final just played perfectly into what the Blackcaps are all about with their cricket and how they operate.
Mate, let me tell you, I'm dangerously low on sleep, I'm dangerously high on caffeine, and I'm dangerously buzzed on Blackcaps cricket right now. Mate, it did, eh? It just things lined up. Things lined up nicely, and it all kind of worked out in a way where we got to play with absolutely no pressure. And I think it's like throughout this World Cup and going back, a couple of years, we at the Niche Cache are quite good, I think, at being able to see through the kind of like the Blackcaps goggles that you get a lot, and support the great things, celebrate the wonderful achievements and whatever, but also pick up on the things where things are like, that doesn't quite make sense. What are we doing there? And throughout this group stage, I think a lot of our stuff was pointing out, first of all, at the start when they were on a big winning streak, and we were being like, look below the surface, things are a little weird here. And then when they were losing, it was like, well, a little bit of we told you so. But then coming into our preview podcast last week, we were both really quite optimistic in a way where I think a lot of people just expected us to lose coming off 3 defeats the way that we did. Certainly outside of New Zealand, no one gave us a damn chance. So it was, I don't know, I just had a good feeling about this one. And I guess that's why, because things just did line up in a way where I didn't necessarily think we were going to win, but I was absolutely convinced that we could give them a good run. And even when we were taking our time through that first innings and there was criticism and guys were scoring slowly, and it was like, yes, but regardless of what happens, my opinion during that first innings was, as long as we could get at least 220, like just something, anything for Trent Boult to bowl at. Because the way I saw it was that if Trent Boult didn't take early wickets, we weren't going to win anyway. Like if we didn't get Sharma and Kohli out nice and cheap, they were going to chase down 220, they were going to chase down 260, they could have chased down 300 or 340. It wasn't going to matter if we didn't get early wickets. So it was all about just getting something to, like, we weren't batting for the win in that first innings, we were just batting to set up anything for Boult to bowl at. And as it happened, Matt Henry stepped up to the plate as well, and well, there we go. We got 2 opening bowlers absolutely firing in the way that they did. This is what can happen. You got 4 wickets inside the first 10 overs, and she's looking good. And from that point on, it was a game, And, like, a lot of things happened to get to that point. A lot of things where the Blackcaps, that thing about not having any pressure, that thing about the theme that they've been harping on about all World Cup, about adapting. I mean, no one adapted better to those conditions than Williamson and Taylor, and getting criticism a little bit at the time for batting slowly, but in hindsight, looked like absolute genius innings, so which they were. So yeah, man, like things just I don't know, the planets aligned, the stars shone nice and brightly at the right time, just things kind of cracked in the right way for the Blackcaps, and a part of that was, to be honest, the rain break. I think having the 2-dayer thing helped enormously, because I think it was on TMS. One of the Indian journos was saying he was chatting to Sachin Tendulkar on the first day, and Sachin was apparently telling him, like, I just think Kane Williamson missed a trick here. You know, he won the toss. He had great conditions, overhead conditions to bowl in first. Like, get your seamers, really attack the Indian top order, get them under pressure at the best time to bowl at them. And as it happened, we got to bowl early on in nice seam bowling conditions on the second day. So, like, just little things like that, and enormous things like that. Actually, it was quite a big, significant one, I think. Just went the right way for the Blackcaps. And I don't know, did you get the same vibe going all the way through? Even when it was getting testy, you knew you were 1 wicket away, and that's been their thing in the last 3 games. 1 wicket, but one big partnership they couldn't break. This time they broke it. It got Jadeja under a bit of scoreboard pressure to take a big swing, and there you go. Like, it was, I don't know, what a bloody enjoyable game, I'll say, first of all. Right up there with one of the best I've ever seen. And, yeah, like, the Blackcaps were just touched by a bit of fortune there, weren't they? Destiny, should we say. It was destiny.
Well, the rain overnight and the stoppage in play turned it from you could see the pitch was going to lean this way, and the further this game went from being one of the kind of 300-run games that England, the team England, have become renowned for in this World Cup cycle, the further this game and these conditions moved away from that type of game, it was better for the Blackcaps. So it started out like that, and then we had this astonishing situation where we had day 2 of a World Cup semi-final after there had been rain. So, like, Matt Henry, for example, he's a bowler who I haven't been overly excited about at this World Cup, because for the most of this World Cup, there's been pitches. There have been like little nibbly pitches, but they haven't been pitches that offer a bunch of swing and seam movement. And if they do, you're still coming up against the world's best batsman. But suddenly Matt Henry is on a pitch and in conditions that are perfect for Matt Henry. Like, Matt Henry would have thought he was in the county championship Division 2 from last season, where he took, over 70 wickets or some shit like that in a season, averaging less than 20. Same conditions, same job for Matt Henry. So leading into the semi-final, it seemed like everything was going the Blackcaps' way, and then just how the crazy circumstances of having a 2-day game with rain and conditions. Because if conditions are different for the final, I'm not so confident about the Blackcaps. So sure, anyone can show up and win on the day, but the Blackcaps, to beat India in this game, they needed conditions to be a certain way, and that's exactly what they got. And then you just saw a bunch of, like, there's so many wrinkles wildcard that I reckon we should just go through them a bit harder and a bit faster than we usually do, because there's so many different players who you can offer a little thought on, and I want to get that ball rolling with Ross Taylor and mainly Ross Taylor, and how he set the tone for the batting innings of day 2, because the Blackcaps came out, they just worked 1s and 2s to get the score up higher, when perhaps a lot of people were thinking, it's just a smash-a-thon, and that kind of set the tone for how the Blackcaps were going to win this game. Was a little bit of just take care of the basics extremely well. They got 1s and 2s, they took the score up to 239. So how do you view Ross Taylor's role in day 2? So we're strictly talking day 2 here, how he used his experience to manipulate the ball. He did get run out, but he set the tone along with Tom Latham and the batsman that came after that.
Yeah, I mean, they just sort of picked up where they left off, and the boundaries weren't flowing at any point in this game. Even India was struggling to get the ball away, and it's pure Blackcaps, isn't it? Like, this is exactly what this Blackcaps team has gotten to this point, and why they were successful in this game for being able to do, is they don't necessarily go all or nothing. They just, like, assess the conditions, assess the state of the game, and say, what is an achievable, realistic target here? And I think that's what they did. Like, it's not that he wasn't trying to hit boundaries. The bad ball would have gone if he found one, but Jasprit Bumrah doesn't bowl very many bad balls. So I guess they just kind of, like Kane Williamson said, and Kane Williamson batted the same with Ross Taylor on day one. Like the way they built the innings was what allowed Taylor to, sort of dictate those last sort of, 4 overs of the innings there on the start of day 2. Like in fact, I think Kane Williamson said this. It was either talking to Brian Waddle or it might have been in his press conference afterwards. Like he said, him and Ross, while they were batting, they sort of just had a chat and said, 240 is going to be pretty tough here on this pitch. And I think that's pretty much what they had in mind when they came back out in those last few overs was, let's not risk everything and try get 260. Let's just take the 240 that's on offer if we bat smart, and we'll see what we can do with that. And what they could do with that was, win the game. So I thought it was just clever, sort of not quite meticulous, but just efficient. Let's say efficient batting, and they took what was on offer and then knew that with their bowling they could do it's not that they knew they could. Of course they knew it was possible, but I think. Well, like what I said before, I don't think any target was going to be big enough if we allowed their top order to get in and have some big partnerships at the start, the way that we let England do that when we played them. Early wickets were essential, and if we got early wickets, then, again, another example of how this game turned into that kind of real grindy, low-scoring kind of tricky to get away, tricky to get in, difficult pitch kind of game, which suited the Blackcaps enormously. It suited us exactly perfectly. That's the exact conditions that we needed to be able to challenge India. So, it's just efficient batting, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Virat Kohli was the one who said prior to the tournament that this World Cup, later on in the World Cup, it will be known for the 250 scores, because the pressure of the World Cup, you're not going to get so much 300 scores. So that's exactly how this played out. The batting from Williamson and Taylor day 1 of this game was more, okay, it's a difficult pitch to bat on. India are bowling well. We've got to dig in for our country to have a chance here. So that's exactly what they did. But the day 2 situation was, you have a choice. You can either come out and bang boundaries, or you can come out and manipulate the ball. And there was a clear decision made that we're going to do this Kiwi style. We're going to work the 1s and 2s, run hard, and keep the scoreboard ticking over. So that's just a little interesting little nuance there. Then we move into the new ball antics, and I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about here, because it's just new ball bowling. It's what the Blackcaps do. They move the ball around. Any batsman, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to come up against good new ball bowling, you're gonna be in danger. And that's the Blackcaps. That's exactly what the Blackcaps did, with some assistance from good fielding from Jimmy Neesham and Martin Guptill. I want to talk about Martin Guptill though, Wildcard, because he epitomised what the Blackcaps, and again what Kiwi sport's all about, by being completely out of form with the bat and then showing up on day 2. And the energy Guptill has in the field, and the desire just to have an impact in the field, knowing that you could have a sulk, you could have a cry, you could get down in the dumps, worrying about your form with the bat. But Martin Guptill and the Blackcaps fielders had an influence on this game from the field. So just the environment to have someone like Guptill show up day 2, righto, my job is to be the best fieldsman I can be, and he did exactly that. Not just with the run out, but the energy Guptill has diving around, it flows in. Then you've got other good fielders, Santner, Neesham, Ross Taylor's a good fieldsman. All these guys are just diving around, saving runs, doing their best, and I think it just started with the energy and intent from Guptill to have an impact in the field.
Yeah, 100%. There are a lot of great fielders in the world, and we saw a bit of a masterclass from Ravi Jadeja as well in this game. He's easily India's best fielder, and I thought quite brilliant captaincy from Virat Kohli to just have, the way the ball seems to be attracted to those guys. That doesn't happen by accident. He's being put by his captain in the right positions to where they're targeting, to where they want the ball to go. And Martin Guptill, same deal. Like, Kane Williamson did a great job of keeping Guptill involved, knowing that he is, of all the great fielders in the world, he is in that absolute top tier where it's like he can not just do his job without flaws, like he can actually make a difference in a game. Like, he can be the difference in the way that a strike bowler can be the difference when you put the ball in their hands, kind of thing. Like, that catch he took against Australia, I still think that's better than the one Neesham took. Maybe not as important, but better than the one Neesham took in this game, better than that Ben Stokes one or the Wokes one. Like, I still think that's, if not the best catch in this tournament, maybe the best catch you've ever seen. Like, he can do things like, and that run out of Dhoni was unbelievable. Like, that was just, everything was inch perfect. Like, to just no doubt in the mind, just, here, there's the stump, here we go. And Jadeja had done the same things to run Taylor out. The two, arguably, like, the two most experienced batsmen on each side, the two sort of leaders of those batting lineups as in terms of these two innings there, like Dhoni carrying all the weight for India. They're not scoring at a quick rate, but just like making sure, like giving Jadeja the freedom to go by locking down an innings, just turning over the strike just enough, being smart about it all. I don't think the criticism that Dhoni's gotten for batting too slow, which I heard but from a few people, I don't think that's fair at all. I thought he gave them the chance. And Taylor, same deal. Like, he gave New Zealand the chance. And at the end, you just got to go for those runs. And if someone can do something absolutely unbelievable, like those two run-outs, the way Taylor got out, the way Dhoni got out, like, bugger it, man. That's cricket. Like, you just got to go for it. You got to take those risks. And if someone's good enough to hit a stump from that distance, fair play to them. And that's the difference, eh? Like, having a fielder like that is just, I don't know if he changed the game. I think we were probably slightly on top from the point that Jadeja got out, but like, he certainly was the difference in us winning. After that, it was pretty much like foregone conclusion once Dhoni was out. So, like, there's just, man, to be able to do that, like, and under the pressure he was under all the criticism he'd been getting for the 24 hours previously, it's like, yeah, that's a class individual right there.
Part of the everything falling in favour of the Blackcaps was how the game unfolded, because it allowed Mitchell Santner to do what Mitchell Santner does best, and that is tie up an end, strangle the team. And this is something I've noticed about the Blackcaps against weaker teams, is just how they have the ability to turn the screws at certain times in the game. You know, bring the field in, good fielding, stops runs flowing. You've got bowlers like Mitchell Santner, Colin de Grandhomme, who can tie up an end in the right circumstances. But Mitchell Santner had a fantastic game, but he was allowed to do so because of the work with the new ball to take wickets. And then Mitchell Santner just comes in and bowls dot balls, bowls a nice tight line and length, which he's not an attacking option. He's not an aggressive wicket-taking X-factor bowler, but if he is tying up an end, he can be an attacking option by forcing errors, which is what happened kind of in the key stages of that game. Mitchell Santner's 2 wickets were Rishabh Pant just after he faced 56 balls and he was pretty much set. And then he tried to release the pressure against Santner, and Hardik Pandya again. Both those batsmen, left hand and right hand, they were dismissed by Santner, hitting through mid-wicket cow corner area as an attacking option. And Mitchell Santner, so going back to February 25th, 2018 versus England, Mitchell Santner has bowled in 17 innings since then, and he has taken 2 or more wickets twice in those 17 innings. Just over a year period. So he doesn't take 2 or more wickets all that often recently. And then throughout his career, 68 games, bowling in 63 innings, Mitchell Santner has taken 2 or more wickets in just 17 of those 63 innings. So that shows you that Mitchell Santner isn't an attacking wicket-taking option, and it's kind of an anomaly that Mitchell Santner was one of the most influential bowlers in this game with his wickets, but everything flowed into Mitchell Santner having an influence, having an impact because of how tight the game was. There was just enough spin for Santner. bowlers around Santner had done a good job to allow Santner to flourish in a economical, tight spell, and the fielding obviously backed that up as well. And it's kind of, Mitchell Santner didn't take 5 wickets, he didn't take 4 wickets, he didn't rip through the Indian team, but it was Mitchell Santner, like many of these other Blackcaps, just doing a very good day's work in a World Cup semi-final.
Yeah, like this goes back to what you're saying about Matt Henry as well. Like the way the conditions worked allowed Henry and allowed Santner, and by conditions I don't just mean I mean the atmospheric conditions, the pitch conditions, but as much as those things, the conditions of the game, the fact of being a World Cup semi-final, the pressure, the early wickets that put India's middle order in a cautious mode where they couldn't take the risks they would have liked to. Like all of these things combined, even the second day aspect of things, allowed Matt Henry and Mitchell Santner to bowl in their ideal situations, where Santner just has to tie up an end, and he can do that brilliantly against batsmen who are scared to take a risk. And when they do take a risk, well, what do you know? A couple slog sweeps, a couple wickets. And Matt Henry could just bowl slightly fuller than a good length and try nip the ball around a little bit and catch some edges, like exactly what he did. Perfect for both of them. And they, if I would go as far to say that if this were a game that had unfolded in a way where we were looking at, a shootout where 300 plus was a chase here and batsmen were coming out looking to be positive, I think Matt Henry would have got blasted all over the field, and I think Mitchell Santner would have been very comfortably handled. Like the way, in fact, we've seen both of those things happen already in this World Cup. When Matt Henry tried to bowl against Carlos Brathwaite, and he got pumped for 25 off and over and led the West Indies right back into that game. Like he just, you felt nervous when he came on to bowl in that game the way it was going. You felt even more nervous as balls started flying over the fence. But Harry was able to bowl where he could, as you say, just turn the screws there, like just apply the pressure, just put the foot on the throat a little bit more, and be the bowler who was taking control of the situation rather than being dictated to by the batsman and by the state of the game. Like these things just aligned to where Santner and Henry were able to be just in exactly where they wanted to be, and that means that suddenly we had 4 bowlers that we could trust implicitly, and instead of the 20 overs of strike bowling that I expected us to have. And that's the difference. That's the pressure you're able to apply. That's the scoreboard pressure that builds up from these things. That's the mistakes you force out of India, who are having to play catch up there. Like that's why we're able to win this game, one of many different reasons. So bloody love it, mate. I bloody love it. Just everything worked out so well, eh?
It's all depend on the pitch. Like it's all depend on the pitch, because you said the shootout. Well, if it's a shootout, it's a flat pitch.
Yeah.
And a flat pitch, Matt Henry is a bit of a nothing bowler. On a juicy pitch, Matt Henry is a fantastic bowler, as his domestic record in New Zealand and England shows, because both nations rely heavily on a bit of juice in the pitch. What other players stand out for you, Wildcard, is just having a little bit of... I was interested in Henry Nicholls not taking the field, and again, this just plays into how Kiwis play cricket, because Tim Southee pretty much spent that whole innings in the field in place of Henry Nicholls, and Tim Southee has played 1 game in this World Cup. Suddenly he is part of a Blackcaps fielding unit doing a job, and it just shows you how switched on and clued in everyone was for this game, because Tim Southee just came in, slotted straight in. Sure, all he's got to do is field, but in a World Cup semi-final, you've got to field to the level of your team, and the Blackcaps were fielding extraordinary, and Tim Southee just came in, slotted straight in, and did his job.
Yeah, well, when you get Tim Southee out there, you get 2 things above all else, don't you? You get, first of all, a leader on the field, which is pretty essential in a game where you're under a lot of pressure, massive stakes. Like having someone who could just be a part of those little conversations, just pop in with Williamson and Taylor, have a little chat, Trent Bolt as well, like have a little yarn, say, well, here's what I reckon, want you move this fielder here to here, or want you bowl this guy next, sort of thing. Just having that extra voice, enormous, like massive what do you call it, like bonus to have that. Also, you get a great pair of hands and an excellent arm, so you've got an outfielder who can do his job extremely well. So yeah, like I don't see I mean, Henry Nicholls is quite a good fielder himself. He's a inner circle fielder, and maybe we had enough of those, especially at a time when where singles are being manipulated, we're protecting boundaries and trying to apply a bit of pressure by squeezing inwards rather than pressing outwards. But I don't know, like, you do what you do. Maybe he had a little injury or something, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, Henry Nicholls had a hamstring injury, that's why he was in the field. Yeah.
He did. Well, that's the injury he came into the World Cup with, isn't it? I think. If not the same one, then probably related. So, yeah, okay, fair enough. I think it all comes down, though, to Williamson's captaincy, and it's something we've been a little... I don't know about critical. I think he's copped some, like the Australia game, not being ruthless enough. He gets compared to Brendan McCullum so much, and, like, hey, I've done plenty of that on this podcast recently, but it's not so much to compare them favourably or unfavourably, it's just comparing the different styles, and it's a little tricky because we're having to adapt between the two styles. But I think Williamson, for one thing, I think he's gotten better with every game in this thing. I think he is a very, very good captain, but he is himself. He isn't Brendan McCullum. And the way he orchestrated this, I thought was pretty excellent. He had that one tricky aspect where, I mean, it's easy when it's not easy, but it's easier when you're on top of the game and trying to be the team dictating things and the team with the momentum to be able to apply a little bit more pressure. And yeah, we've been very good at that in recent times. I think what was the tricky part with him was trying to get rid of those last 10 overs from the fifth bowler without allowing a release bowler type thing. And I thought he did really well with Jimmy Neesham, who is a death bowler at this point, who I trust quite well. Because, that more than anything, that last over against the West Indies proved that, where he just came in and bowled simply to a plan, getting things a little bit short and managed to get Brathwaite out and managed to win us that game. So I didn't mind that, but at the same time, he is still, like, if they pick a slower ball, then he is a guy who could go the distance. And there's a couple times there where you're like, how are you going to balance this bowling attack? Like, do you even... I thought at one point, like, don't even bowl Neesham again once there were only 5 of overs left with the 30 overs in or something like that at this point. I'm like, well, just bowl out all your top line guys, and if the game's still going with 5 overs to go, then we're probably going to lose. But let's just bank on being able to get those wickets and break this partnership and break the next partnership. And not how he did it. He just sort of eased Neesham in for like little 1 or 2 over spells just the whole way through. I actually thought it isn't what I thought he should have done, but I think it worked out really well. I thought it was quite a clever way to do it. Is just don't let them see him over and over. Just let him come in and be a bit of a surprise rather than, it's always that second over with the extra bowler that's the trouble. Like, he can come on and bowl a nice over, and then the second they say, well, that was a nice over, so we're going to give you another one, and then that's the one that goes for 20 because they've seen you had a good look at you. And just mixing things up, bringing Trent Boult back for a little 2 over spell at one point, giving Ferguson short spells, the way he worked with Henry, not bowling Henry too deep into the game, but also trusting him at a point where I think he bowled, was it the 45th or 46th over or something like that? Like, you couldn't have bowled Henry the second to last over again after the West Indies game, but he came in, bowled a little bit earlier just as India were trying to go for it, and bowled a great over. I think only went for 3 or 4 runs or something like that, and helped get us back in the game after there'd been just a little spell where they'd just been picking 8 and 9 and 10 off overs without having to do too much or take too many risks. And just all these little like the balancing act from Williamson, I thought was extraordinary in this game.
I can't say any grand judgments about Williamson's captaincy because it's completely different scenarios. Everything's easier for you if you are taking early wickets and you're in the box seat for the game. The Blackcaps had India 4 for 24, 5 for 71, 6 for 92. Like, if those 3 wickets in the first 5 overs, they change everything. So I've just noticed there's Mr. Andrew Gordy just tweeted pretty much as you were saying that, he tweeted about comparing McCullum and Williamson's leadership. I'm tempted to retweet his tweet and offer some clarity around what Mr. Gordy is saying, because it completely depends on game scenario. But the Blackcaps may be in the World Cup final in the next game, completely different scenario, and Kane Williamson is being talked about as not being brave enough, not going for the jugular enough in a World Cup final. Whereas in this game, everything was in favour of the Blackcaps, so it's a whole lot easier for Williamson to make those decisions and rotations, because he knows that his bowling attack in those conditions can do a good job. So Williamson's captaincy, he is not as aggressive as McCullum. We know that it's different. Different things work for different scenarios. But I'm not going to come to any grand conclusions about Williamson, the captain, from that game when there was such a divine presence in that game, quite clearly. And you've got your new ball bowlers. It just makes everything so much different with early wickets, as you reinforced earlier in the podcast. The more I move into hindsight, I'm completely fine with those 3 losses. I think for the Blackcaps, they had reached the point where they were pretty much going to qualify. They could lose those 3 games and still qualify if certain things went their way. I'm not here saying that they tanked those 3 games, but I don't think they needed to be as it's not a semi-final. It's 3 games after a pretty long World Cup against solid opposition, and it doesn't really I just don't think you can take anything from those 3 games into the semi-final. As we said in the last podcast, it's a completely new tournament, and I just think from those 3 games, the Blackcaps just kept moving forward. They weren't too worried about it. Again, they made the semi-finals through a bit of divine guidance, and they just had to be there. They just had to be in the semi-final, and whatever happened in those 3 losses didn't really matter moving into the semi-final stage.
And of course, those 3 losses were what helped reinforce us as the underdogs and took all the pressure off going into these semi-finals, to where India were the team that were thoroughly expected to win, not just to win, but to win pretty easy. All the previews about the semi-finals, it's about, England and Australia is most of what I'm hearing. Everyone's looking at that game, and they're looking at that game being which one of these teams is going to play India in the next, in the grand final? Well, hold on a second there. The Blackcaps quite enjoy being the underdogs. They quite enjoy being in a situation where I think this is maybe one of the essential aspects of this game, which is that the Blackcaps, Virat Kohli came out afterwards and said effectively, and he's completely right too, effectively India let this game slip with a 45-minute spell of bad cricket where the start of their innings where they lost early wickets. And that's completely true. Even on the Williamson captaincy thing, if we hadn't taken those early wickets, I'm convinced we would have lost, and probably lost by 6 or 7 wickets. And and Williamson would be copping some criticism for not being aggressive enough, but I don't think it would have been Williamson's fault. I think the most important part of this game were those 45 minutes at the start of the innings, because that would dictate the entire rest of the innings there, whether India were on top and we were chasing it, whether the other way around, whether it was something nice and even, whether it was going to be a quick run rate in this innings, or the exact opposite, which, all those things happen to work. Every time you tossed a coin in those situations, it came up the way of the Blackcaps rather than India, which is nicely. But you also, it's a lot of luck that comes in, a lot of good fortune. It's also, you do make your own luck to a very large degree, and the Blackcaps, their formula of just giving it 80% rather than trying to risk 0 or 100, we'll just keep it at that steady 80%, and we don't have a lot above that, but we won't give you much below that either. We're not gonna make dumb mistakes. We're not, well, except for 1 or 2 French players in this team. The way Colin de Grandhomme keeps getting himself out just quietly is falls in that category. But the Blackcaps they're not gonna beat themselves, but they're not necessarily going to beat you. But if you make the mistakes against them, which is why they're so good against teams that are worse than them, because they just wait out the mistakes and punish them when they come along. You don't always get that against big teams, and India, I think, didn't quite handle the pressure in the same way that the Blackcaps did, and that's because India had about 1.6 billion times as much pressure on them as we did. And just handle, the way they did it, just staying true to the way they play, and ultimately, go back to McCullum versus Williamson, ultimately, all the aggression, all the the big hitting and these aspects that we associate with Brendan McCullum. Ultimately, the absolute core of what Brendan McCullum preaches is play your natural game. And the current Blackcaps with Kane Williamson, their natural game is a lot closer to what we saw here than what we saw in 2015 World Cup, which is good. Like, ultimately, he's doing exactly what Brendan McCullum would ask, which is play the way that you feel most comfortable, the way that has got you to this point. Williamson's doing that by just being an efficient 80%, not going to make mistakes kind of captain, and the Blackcaps as a team feed into that, and that's pretty much how they made their way to a World Cup final. Just like, they did own the big moments, they did take their opportunities when they came, and there was a while there when that Jadeja-Donny partnership was getting along, and there was, I think it was Jimmy Neesham bowling over, where there were two in the same one. Like, there was a little glancing sort of hook shot type thing that lobbed up and bounced just in front of Taylor, and there was one that bounced just in front of, I think it was Mitchell Santner out on the boundary. Like, little opportunities where it's like, man, that could have been the moment, but they just stayed in there. They stayed in the hunt. They didn't panic. They didn't make rash risks or anything like that. They just hung around. Their opportunities came. Martin Guptill took a low percentage option, made that massive run out. Just hanging in there, and that's the way they've got to this point. And looking back at those 3 defeats, I still maintain they were a lot closer than they could have been, because there was just that one big moment that they didn't quite take, the one partnership in each of those 3 games which got away from us. And that's, Guptill dropped Khawaja in the Australian game. Khawaja went on to have a big innings in that big partnership. Like, that's how close they were. They were big defeats, but I honestly thought they were in the running in all 3 of those games at a point. Like, it wasn't close in terms of the result, but it was close in terms of the way it played out, where just 1 or 2 big moments, and here they owned the moments, and that's how you beat a team like India in the World Cup semi-final.
I think we'll wrap it up there, Wildcard, or else we are just talking around in circles, repeating everything we've said. So the final, I believe, is on Sunday overnight. We got England versus India tonight, Wednesday night, so we'll know who the Blackcaps are playing in the final. It doesn't really matter at this stage, given how the Blackcaps won that semi-final, who they face in the final. England at home is going to be a pretty shit final. Australia, well, we tend not to beat Australia. So either way, New Zealand will be up against it.
I'd argue we beat the best team left, though.
We'll see how we go up with conditions and any other little... Maybe a couple of guys get injured in that semi-final as well, and we'll just see what happens there. But Sunday night, World Cup final. New Zealand versus either Australia or England. For the Cricket World Cup, and yeah, we once we know the finalists, we might preview that. We'll see how we go. Otherwise, stay tuned and read plenty of Niche Cage content, because there's going to be plenty of Blackcap stuff coming up. Kia kaha. Be the underdog. Win a World Cup semi-final against the big dogs. That's how we do it. You can do it too. See you later.